think LA and California in general still has a lot of potential, but there have been some policies implemented that have been disastrous. So Gavin Newsom and the current Democratic legislature in the state of California have engaged in this trend of decriminalizing everything and refusing to.
Last year, Gavin Newsom signed 18 separate housing bills. Did they work? Not at all. They did not work for the people who live in California, but they weren't intended to work for people who want to buy houses. Instead, those bills had one purpose: destroying suburban homes and replacing them with high.
More than a Whole Foods rotisserie chicken, California was just roasted. Who's holding the spit, you ask? Carlson and Tucker with Anna Kasparian. In a way that will make you wonder if Gavin Newsom is the hero of a Netflix political comedy or the governor of a state. Two people who typically disagree on the color of the sky have banded together to expose him. Unshaken was the hair gel, certainly not the reputation. Gavin would prefer that the information you are about to hear remained classified.
Gavin Newsom, in every single interview I've seen him do, has passed the buck, even though he is the governor of this state. Yeah. He is pathetic. He's a snake. He's like the slimiest Democratic politician, certainly on a local level. But what we have seen is mismanagement of epic proportions and the mere existence, and it is.
I don't think there's anything at all at the core other than misery, another deeply, deeply unhappy person who, we should be rooting for him to get his life together. But someone who kind of externalizes everything. There's nothing at the center, and so everything is about the public display. A truly wounded, screwed up person.
If you find it entertaining, kindly subscribe to the channel. It's more helpful than you may imagine. As if hair gel were a political platform, Gavin Newsom parades around California politics. He seems to think that the same glossy shine he applies to his head each morning can solve all of the state's issues. Tucker Carlson and Anna Kasparian would be able to take him down without exchanging a single word. He already has a record that speaks for itself. The economy of California is being handled like a luxury yacht by this governor. He is too preoccupied to notice that the champagne is becoming wet. You would think that a man who takes such pride in his image would periodically look at the numbers, but he is too busy flaunting policies that, although they seem fantastic in a press release, fall apart like stale bread in practice.
I would just say that his leadership in California is good reason to brush him off for the loser that he really is, okay? You're over there in China talking about fentanyl, right? How about you clean up your own house? How about you take a look at what's happening with the prosecutions or lack of prosecutions of the drug traffickers in your...
On Wednesday, Newsom again attacked Ron DeSantis. Watch this.
Teachers were under assault because, God forbid, teachers were homosexual. And somehow people presupposed that they would be grooming our kids. That was a debate.
The only consistent outcome of California's crazed social experiment under Gavin Newsom's leadership is that prices are rising and quality is declining. Taxes so high you'd require an emotional support animal simply to open your paycheck, homelessness, skyrocketing housing costs, and breaking records like it's a competitive sport. Newsom manages to portray it all as progress, nevertheless, as though erecting a tent beneath a freeway is chic urban living these days.
But we do know whoever that is will have to have two essential criteria. He'll have to be as shallow, ruthless, and transactional as Joe Biden is, and he'll need to have flattery skills that are so polished and advanced they'd be considered superior even in the Saudi royal court. And there's only one man in modern America who fits that description: Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, and perhaps not coincidentally, Joe Biden's new closest friend.
He's the type of politician who could stand in front of a wildfire that is burning, conveniently disregard the fact that his own policies make prevention more difficult, and blame it all on climate change. Until Anna rips it apart like a cheap imitation, and Tucker takes away that arrogant, undeserved smile, the fantasy sells beautifully. Every time, it's the same old stale playbook. The true crisis is slowly spreading like rot behind the walls, while you grab a popular keyword, dress it up in fancy verbiage, and parade it as visionary leadership.
You're absolutely right, okay, in your analysis. And let me just say, you know that I like you when I'm willing to sit through a podcast episode featuring Gavin Newsom just to prepare for this. Okay,
God bless.
I can't stand him. I can't stand his raspy voice. And it's not for any superficial reason other than the fact that I live in California. I've had the displeasure of experiencing what his leadership actually looks like. He's a snake oil salesman.
Speaking of neglect, let us consider California's infrastructure, which has become so dilapidated that it is essentially a destination for disaster photographers. Newsom will cut the ribbon on a transit project that is only halfway done, grin for the cameras, and then disappear before anyone realizes that the budget has tripled and that work has stagnated. The cuisine would never be served in a restaurant owned by this individual. He had previously told the media about it, so you would still receive a charge for a 5-course meal.
This is what I was surprised about. I did not expect Donald Trump to flip 10 counties in California from blue to red. But I guess I shouldn't have been surprised about that either. Because when you look at the conditions that people are living in a Democrat-controlled state, well, yeah, you can understand why people are turning their backs on the Democratic Party. You can understand why people are frustrated at the corruption, at the loss of $24 billion that was allocated to help the homeless, when homelessness only exploded.
Nobody disputes that every speech is so perfectly polished and every photo opportunity appears to be a Hollywood set. However, politics isn't a fashion show. The question of why the state with Silicon Valley, Hollywood, and billion-dollar agriculture is incapable of handling fundamental governance eventually comes up. The irony of a governor advocating for equality from a taxpayer-funded marble podium is criticized by Tucker, while Anna breaks through the illusion by pointing out that the wealthiest state in the country still struggles to keep the lights on during a heat wave. California is running out of money, and Newsom's climate measures are just another glitzy diversion. The population loss now appears more like an evacuation than a trend, with families seeking affordability, corporations moving to friendlier states, and Newsom departing to speak to an audience more interested in U-Haul prices than his pledges.
One thing I know for a fact about Gavin Newsom is he has the capacity to beat a lie detector test. Gavin Newsom will say anything he needs to say, and not like Biden's not like this actually. Whenever Biden's fault, he's not like this. Like Biden, when he has like guilt. If he's lying to you, he gets twitchy. Gavin Newsom's palms don't sweat, his respiration doesn't increase, his body temperature doesn't change. Nothing changes in Gavin Newsom when he lies to your face. And there are not that many people like that, actually. That's a rare quality. Like to lock down the state, to keep people's kids from getting an education, and to arrest people for surfing, and then go have dinner at the French Laundry.
His career is an excellent example of how to reframe failure as a step forward. Every crisis is politicized and never resolved. Rising crime rates are transformed into complex challenges that require further research. Failing schools are attributed to antiquated systems that never get changed, and homelessness is addressed with costly programs cloaked in catchphrases. His pretentious escapes from responsibility would be torn apart by Anna, who would also make fun of the ridiculousness of a man living like a king. Do you recall the notorious French Laundry dinner? It was more than simply poor optics. It was a peak of someone preparing for the national arena. Newsom's polished persona shouts presidential aspirations, but the hitch is that he won't inspire confidence throughout America by managing California like a failing startup.
We spent $13 billion in Los Angeles alone last year to combat homelessness. You want to know where that money went? That money went to these trash nonprofits who have a bunch of executives making $500,000 a year. You're working for a nonprofit dealing with homelessness. That's my money. That's my parents' money. Okay? That is the hardworking people of California paying incredibly high taxes that go to what? So yeah, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. And honestly, just experiencing what I've seen on the ground in California has made me question a lot about left-wing.
Delivering the dream is a different matter than selling it. His delivery record is currently as dependable as California's electricity grid during periods of high demand. His governance is aptly symbolized by the electricity grid, strained, neglected, and in danger of collapsing all the time. Not only are rolling blackouts embarrassing in the nation's most technologically advanced state, they serve as a stark reminder that leadership is about action, not words. In Newsom's universe, however, the darkness is not an issue. As if the present is irrelevant, it's a chance to form a task force, make a statement, and change the focus to discuss the future of clean energy. With delight, Tucker would dissect the inconsistencies, how a pro-environment state is unable to handle simple forest care, Californians are voting with their feet. But Newsom continues to talk, smile, and behave as though California is the model for the rest of America.
And I have been bothering him for years, like, you should come on my show. And he was kind of open to it. And then he whips around and he's like, no, you should come on mine. And I was like, oh, I would love to, because I would love to debate him about what he's done to my state. And then I watched a parade of people go on, some of whom are good friends of mine, by the way, conservatives go on his show. And I realized, and I'm not attacking them at all, I almost did, but then I realized, oh, wait a second, this is like, this is not, the point of this is not to have a real conversation or to answer questions.
He's sort of the ideal politician for the Instagram era. While substance is optional, aesthetics are required. By using the appropriate lighting, filter, and emotive wording, it is possible to reframe every mistake and make people forget that nothing has truly changed. However, the cracks are becoming visible, and no amount of gel can hide the fact that California's issues are becoming worse quicker than the state's population is declining. Tucker and Anna wouldn't have to make any exaggerations. He performs the heavy lifting with his record. Every chapter of his term, from mishandled pandemic policies to soaring crime rates, from expensive housing to deteriorating infrastructure, reads like a guide on how not to run a state with limitless resources. Tucker and Anna, unfortunately for him, are the type of folks that show up at parties with flashlights. The longer they shine them, the more Californians may begin to wonder why their leader appears so well-groomed while everything else is falling apart. That's where the roast really gets to you. In addition to being a terrible politician, Gavin Newsom is an example of charisma misinterpreted as ability. This serves as a reminder that neat hairstyles and well-spoken speeches cannot fix roads, keep the lights on, or stop California's citizens, businesses, and patients from suffering.
Democratic establishment candidates are full of shit. And I need people to understand that. And we need to get out of this like vicious pendulum swing cycle where we go from one terrible administration to another terrible administration. They just have different branding. But in the end, they do nothing for ordinary people. And that's what people are hungry for.
Photo ops don't alter that. Despite this, he continues to smile for the cameras as his state continues to descend into disaster, and he practices lines for a national debut. The leader's obsession with looks has made him a symbol of style above substance, which is lyrical irony. The emperor is naked, but he has amazing hair, as Anna and Tucker reveal when they peel back the curtain. According to him, governance is a red carpet affair where slick statements divert attention from more important tasks. His trademark move? After making a lofty promise, provide a glossy pamphlet. High-speed rail is still a pipe dream.
I'm interested in the governor. I know the governor of the state. He's got some, I know Gavin Newsom, he's got some talent, I think, and charming for sure. But like, what is going on? Is he aware of that? I've asked him, and I
You really find him charming?
well, in a kind of reptilian way. I mean, charming in the sense that his whole life is devoted to winning people over.
Yes,
kind of like Bill Clinton was, and I think he's good at it. But I also think someone said to me the other day, Newsom could pass a lie detector test on saying anything. Like there's a coldness inside that
he's
allows
a sociopath. I think
That's
he's
kind of
a snake oil salesman. I think he's a liar, and I think that he destroyed the state of California. Full stop.
More akin to luxury condos, inexpensive living is tucked away halfway between the rooftop pool and valet parking. Under Newsom, California seems like one lengthy pitch session for projects that seem innovative, but somehow always run out of steam, funding, or both before anything changes. His ability to pretend that California's troubles are just occurring to him, as if he were an innocent bystander to the state's collapse, is another remarkable quality. His leadership or policies are never the cause. Instead, it's always an outside factor beyond his control. The outcomes, however, speak for themselves since he has been in charge long enough, and such outcomes seem less like a success story and more like a warning to anyone who believes that style can take the place of substance. The hypocrisy of a leader who promotes California as the nation's model when people cannot afford to live there would be shattered by Anna.
Here's some examples. One of the things that they decriminalize but refuse to regulate is prostitution, okay? I think that sex work should be legalized and regulated, okay? What I mean by that is I don't want to see prostitutes walking around in thongs on the streets as kids are walking to school. But what the Democrats in California have done is we don't have the balls to actually legalize and regulate it, and we're lazy as hell. So we're just going to do the super lazy thing of
In spite of all the speeches and glitzy advertisements, Tucker would drive home the point that California is losing citizens to states with cheaper taxes, safer streets, and leaders who genuinely care more about getting things done than taking pictures. It is astoundingly ironic. Selling the rest of America on the idea that his own people are escaping in unprecedented numbers is Newsom's goal. Despite all of this, he continues to spin every failure into a soundbite while standing at the stage as the living example of political confidence. As he continues, it becomes increasingly evident that under Gavin Newsom, California's top export isn't technology, wine, or entertainment. People are departing in search of a place that works. His legacy is that in and of itself. Before attempting to move his performance onto a larger platform, the question is whether the rest of the nation would see through the glitz. Because if they do not, California's disastrous experiment with style over substance leadership may just end.